Hi everybody, welcome to the SP Detox Balance Talk this evening. And we're going to be talking about how to, between either Thanksgiving and Christmas or at the New Year, how do you take a 3-week period of time and kind of alter the way you've been eating and move more towards a healthier eating lifestyle so that we can put some of these habits into regular action. So let's start with, what would 1 degree of change look like? So if you took off in an airplane from Los Angeles and you're headed to New York and the pilot was just 1 degree off, where do you think they would land?
Florida. 50 degrees.
Hundreds of miles away. Hundreds of miles away. So a 1 degree of change in our lives, in our lifestyle, in our daily habits can make a huge difference in the health of our bodies and our brains and our minds and everything else over a period of time. So that's what we want to talk about tonight. What would your 1 degree of change be? So who wants to start? I started my 1 degree of change, and it is exercising 4 days out of 7. So I get up a little earlier and I go and do some sort of exercise, even if it's just a 7-minute workout, right? Something that's consistent. So who else wants to say what their 1 degree of change, what they're willing to change 1 degree?
No sugar.
More sleep. Oh, that's a really important one. Super, super, super important. We should be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day, preferably uninterrupted sleep, right? And the reason we do that is when you sleep, your brain actually shrinks 40 to 50%, and lymphatic fluid called glymph floods the brain and takes out the trash. Our body does that all day long, but the brain only does it when you're asleep because we need it the rest of the time, usually. So sleep is super, super important. So how many of you get 7 hours of sleep a night? Excellent. How many of you don't? Okay, so I want you to consider trying to get more sleep. Find out why you don't. If it's a silly thing like being on the computer and catching up on your Facebook and stuff like that, just don't. Just give it up. If it's, I gotta stay up to watch the news, yeah, you don't. You don't really need to do that. And especially before bed, you don't need to do that. So see if you can just increase by 15-minute increments, right? Go to bed 15 minutes earlier, and then go to bed a half an hour earlier until you get to that minimum of 7 hours of sleep. Anybody else? What's your 1 degree of change?
I would start the morning off, don't pick up the cell phone,
Oh,
and just get up and move.
there you go.
Because the whole blue light gets you, it's amazing how the minutes pass by, and you don't start yourself aware of yourself.
Yes.
That's a good
Oh,
way.
really good point. Really good point. So you could start with a morning meditation. You can start with a morning exercise routine. You can start with a morning glass of water. So many things you could do. Now, how many of you know what the blue light does to you? So the blue light on your phones and your tablets and all those things, it actually interacts with the pineal gland. If you're using it at the nighttime, for especially, and it slows the production of melatonin, so you actually don't go to sleep on time. So nighttime especially, if you've got a blue light filter on your phone, you should have it set for dark. And then it'll go on automatically and you don't have to worry about it. Now your computer probably doesn't have a blue light screen, but you can wear the blue blocker sunglasses if you have to be on your computer at night after dark. Because once that melatonin production is slowed down or interfered with, you can get a second wind. And you can go on to like 12, 1, 2 in the morning before you actually get that melatonin production put back together so that you can go to sleep.
Doesn't it throw off your rhythm too, your circadian?
Absolutely,
rhythm?
that's part of that process. That's part of that process. Now, and the thing is in the olden days, before we had cell phones, we would have candlelight, right? There's no blue light in candles.
Good point.
So during the day, we would have our blue light, but when it was dark, before we had all these crazy lights that we have now, we fell into this natural rhythm. And people would go to sleep when it was dark, and they would wake up when it was light. We force our bodies into all other kinds of patterns now, especially graveyard work is just the worst for people. And so it's just one of those things that we have control over. Anybody else? 1 degree of change?
Probably no sugar for 5 days.
No sugar for 21 days. The cleanse is 21 days. Sugar's one of those things that we're gonna remove. Okay, and we'll talk about what we're gonna remove. Okay, so we have 6 key changes we're gonna try to focus on during these 21 days. So the 6 key changes are: 1, we're gonna learn about what is good food. I actually had a patient tell me the other day that he thought butter was bad for us. Okay, so it used to be that way for many, many decades. Butter was the bad thing because they thought that any saturated fat was bad for the heart. Well, they came to learn that those studies were faulty, and butter is in fact there was a cube of butter on the front of Time magazine a few years back, and it said, butter, good or evil. And so they're just discovering that butter is not a bad fat. Now, if you have a dairy allergy, you can use ghee. But in general, butter is one of those good fats. It provides us with good nutrients that we need to make new cells. So, what else would be an example of what good food is? How about whole grains? How are whole grains for some of us? Not so great, right? They create an insulin response, like gluten. So it used to be that gluten, wheat, a whole wheat kernel, had about this much gluten in it. This is in the old days, einkorn wheat and ancient grains. And in Europe, this is what the gluten still looks like. This is what the wheat kernel still looks like. Now we've genetically modified our wheat and genetically engineered it, and now it has this much gluten. So what's the challenge with that? Well, as humans, we don't have an enzyme to digest gluten. And so when we eat it to excess, some people can do it without too much of a challenge because they eat it in moderation. But some people will eat toast for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner. You do that day after day after day, or year after year after year, you're going to have some issues with your gut, and it's not going to be pretty. So since we don't digest it, over time it becomes an irritant to the gut and can create a leaky gut. So people with Hashimoto's need to avoid gluten because it triggers an autoimmune response. And there's research that shows it triggers other autoimmune responses as well. So my autoimmune patients, I have them be gluten-free. So during the 21-day cleanse, we won't be eating any gluten. Okay? Reduce bad fats and increase good fats. Can you give me an example of a bad fat?
Potato chips.
What is it?
Chips. Potato chips. Right.
Well, it's not the chip that's the bad fat. It's the
Canola oil.
canola oil. Yeah, canola oil is also called rapeseed, and it is hugely genetically modified. They use it along with other vegetable oils in the deep fryers. And so it used to be in the olden days that when they used deep fryers, they would just dump them at the end of the month, or whenever they changed the oils, they would dump them into a big vat, and then the guy would come and reclaim the oil, and they would go process it, right? Put it in dog food or whatever they do with it. Well, these days, when they dump it out, there's about this much sludge in the bottom of it from all the pesticides and insecticides and chemicals that are on the plants that they're getting this oil from. And so they have to use solvents to scrape the junk out of the bottom of the deep fat fryers to get them ready for the next time that they put new oil in. So it's pretty disgusting. And you can go to some of the greasy spoon places and you can tell when something you can smell the oil when you go in there that it's rancid. So one of my 1 degrees of change 2 years ago was to stop eating French fries. So I just don't eat them anymore. And so if I just have to have them, then I'm going to make them at home in the air fryer, right? So if you have a commitment to being healthy, you can't allow yourself to eat deep fried things out of your home because you just know what they're made out of and you know what they're fried in. So avoiding deep fried things is really important. Other bad fats are margarine. I can't believe it's not butter because it's not. You should believe it because it's not butter. Okay? What are some examples of good fats? Avocados. What else?
Coconut oil.
Coconut oil.
Avocado oil.
Mm-hmm. How about butter?
Nuts.
Nuts and seeds.
Oh,
How about olive oil?
What about some meat, right?
Some what?
Meat.
Yeah, animal fat's a good fat
Mhm.
if it's organically raised, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, actually. That's under number 3. Number 3 is change the meat you eat. This actually blew my mind. So grass-fed meat, so like we're talking deer and elk and things that you would hunt, as well as grass-fed things like bison and buffalo and grass-fed beef that you can get now. There's a omega-6 ratio to omega-3s. Now, omega-6s in excess are inflammatory. They create inflammation in our bodies. So, in grass-fed meat, the ratio is anywhere from 2 to 1 to 4 to 1. Omega-6s to omega-3s, right? But in grain-fed meats, the ratio is, anyone want to guess?
10 to 1.
18 to 1.
Wow.
Hugely inflammatory. And so when you eat out, again, I try to not eat so much meat when I'm eating out. I try to eat my meat at home because I know it's grass-fed. I know it's organic. It doesn't have the hormones and the antibiotics and all the stuff in it, right? Fish is the same. For those of you who are eating fish out of your home, away from your home, most of that's going to be tilapia, right? So if you go out and have fish tacos or fish salad or grilled fish, you have to ask what the source is, because most of that fish is farmed. Farmed fish, so this goes along with changing the meat you eat. Farmed fish, do you know what they do with farmed fish? They grow it in these giant vats, probably about the size of this room. They put all the baby fish in there, then they feed it growth hormone, antibiotics, and antiparasitics, because they're very unhealthy environments. It's not like they're swimming around in the ocean free or in the rivers. They're growing these fish as a crop. And so how do they get paid? By the pound, right? So the faster they grow them, the more money they make. So if it says farmed fish, don't eat it. Don't eat it. I watched a documentary on it. It was frightening. It was frightening. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't eat fish anymore. And salmon, pretty soon, all of our salmon is unfortunately going to be genetically engineered, because they let the cat out of the bag, and they were starting some genetically engineered fish, and then they escaped into the wild, and so now they're all going to crossbreed, and within a few years we're not going to have any original salmon left.
Wow.
And you can tell when you buy it in the store, because if you look at the salmon from Alaska, it's very pink, right? It's not a lot of marbling in it with the fat, but they marbled it so that it has more fat in it. And so you can almost see the striations in the GMO salmon. So when you go to places like the grocery store, they'll say farmed and wild caught. And if you look at them, you'll just kind of see, you can see the difference. Okay, so number 4, reduce sugar. Tell me sources of sugar in our diet.
Everything.
Corn,
Everything, I think. has sugar.
potatoes, bananas are 17% sugar versus berries, which are very low on the sugar index, right? Sodas, we know that, right?
Ketchup.
Chips,
Ketchup.
grains, ketchup. Not second ingredient, I think, is sugar. Second and third in some ketchups,
Mhm.
right? But corn syrup, worse than cane sugar, if I'm being honest, right? So corn syrup, not good. Agave, not good. So, but reducing sugar also means during our 21-day cleanse, reducing high sugar fruits. So stay away from the pineapples and the papayas and the bananas, okay? Stick more with the berries during the 21-day cleanse. It's much less inflammatory. One of our main goals on the 21-day cleanse is to give our pancreas a vacation. It needs a vacation. It doesn't get one very often. Okay? Number 5, replace grains with pseudo grains. So, anybody know what pseudo grains are? Wild rice is a grass.
Quinoa.
Quinoa, yes. So wild rice, quinoa, buckwheat, teff, millet. So I remember as a kid we used to eat millet.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like it, but apparently it's healthy.
So if we have a sensitivity to regular grains, these might work for us?
Yes. Yes. So these are gluten-free, and because wild rice and quinoa are, they're more seeds than grains. That's what makes them unique, is they're more seeds than grains. So seeds have a different reaction on the pancreas, right? They tend to have a little bit higher fat content, and buckwheat is one of those things that also is very good for your microcirculation and your arteries. It reduces cholesterol. You'll notice oats isn't on here because oats is actually a grain. But it doesn't mean you're never going to eat oats again. Just we're not going to eat them. And actually, for the 21-day cleanse, I prefer you to stick with wild rice and quinoa. And the serving size is a half a cup a day. So if you're going to make a big pot of soup, which I recommend, then you can throw in some wild rice or quinoa, a half a cup per serving, or you can put your quinoa and wild rice separate in a bowl and just add your half a cup. That way you know you're getting a serving each time you have that soup. Okay? And number 6, increase water. How many of you currently drink enough water? Excellent, half of you. So half your body weight in ounces of water is ideal. So if you weigh 150 pounds, 75 ounces of water. Now, herbal tea counts as water. In this time of the year, coffee counts as negative water. But at this time of year, hot tea is a great thing to replace your coffee with. Oh, I didn't also mention, one of the things we want to reduce is caffeine. I think that's how you, no, 2 F's. 2 F's, 1 E, 1 N.
You'll know as well that.
I don't drink caffeine, so another thing you could do though is if you're gonna get off your coffee and it's an issue for you, my recommendation is you get some organic decaf, mix your grounds, coffee grounds, 50-50. That reduces your caffeine intake by 50%. I mean, that's a good start. And then oftentimes people say, I don't even notice a difference after 3 weeks. So, and then you can kind of shift that way because caffeine interferes with our receptor sites for melatonin in the brain, stresses our adrenal glands. I mean, in moderation, it's probably okay, 1 cup a day, but how many people drink 1 cup of coffee a day? Here, who drink coffee? Drink more? More than 1 cup?
Drink coffee.
Don't drink coffee. Good. Coffee's not that great for you. There is a substitute though I found. If you love coffee and you're torturing yourself by not drinking it, you can get this, I think it's kind of a seed that they grind up. It's called Capomo. So it has a coffee smell and taste, but it's actually medicinal. So it helps with energy and it's kind of an adaptogen for the adrenal glands. So Capomo is something that you can get online. I found it when I was in Mexico.
Is lentils a grain or is it a seed?
Lentils?
Mm-hmm.
Lentils are a legume.
Oh, okay.
They're a legume. And you can have lentils on protocol on the 21-day cleanse. Okay? So lentils are allowed. But they are a legume. So that means they're going to elicit a little bit of a pancreatic response because they're starchy, but there's so much fiber and protein in them, kind of negates that. So lentil soup is a great thing that you can do to kind of add a little bit of carb to your life when you're on protocol, since we're not doing grains. So lentil soup is a really great way to do that. Actually, I put some pumpkin in my, just a can of organic pumpkin in my chili lentil kind of stew. It was amazing, and added, just different kind of texture to it, and it was really good. So 'tis the season to put pumpkin in everything, right, Rochelle?
Right.
Okay, so now let's talk about one of the main purposes of doing a detox is to get rid of toxins from our environment, from our food, from our life, right? So I want some of you to share with me how you get toxins in your life, because everybody has a different life here. So some of
Mine
us
is
restaurant eating. Ah, good one. So those toxins are going to be preservatives, GMO food, bad fats, right? That's what we're gonna get there. Okay, who else?
Mine's sugar
Sugar, that's your toxin,
right now, yep.
okay.
From-
Sugar is definitely a toxin. Because most sugar, if it's not 100% cane sugar,
Mhm.
most sugar is GMO. They come from GMO sugar beets, genetically modified sugar beets.
Is popcorn a toxin?
Popcorn is not a toxin, but it's super hard to digest, and we've had that conversation before.
Yeah.
Popcorn is super hard on the pancreas.
Oh.
It doesn't digest well.
Microwave popcorn is a toxin, causes cancer.
True. Do you microwave popcorn or make it in a pot?
A Costco big bag.
Oh,
Probably a lot of fat in it.
That's microwave.
it depends on the fat, right? You have to look at the bag and see what kind of oil is it in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if it's in a good oil, in moderation, probably not horrible for you. But it is really hard on the pancreas. So
For the
during the
cleanse.
program,
Mm-hmm.
we won't be eating corn, so we
Okay.
won't be eating popcorn.
Okay.
Anybody else? So you're in dentistry,
Mm-hmm.
so you're exposed to some
Metals,
metals,
mercury.
heavy metals.
As an enamel.
Heavy metals. Heavy metals in the body, anybody who works with metals. So I had a little 12-year-old boy who made fishing lures.
Hmm.
And so he was using lead, and he came to me and he was just like, he had bladder cancer, actually.
Oh.
Had like a little thing that he had to have surgery on. And I'm just like going, this kid's full of heavy metals. And so we started detoxing him, but it was affecting his memory and his brain and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I finally talked to him and I said to his mom, I said, you need ventilation in that room, and he needs gloves. And so he just started protecting himself better, and he's fine. I met him the other day and he went from here to here. So, you just have to be aware of your, if your job includes heavy metal toxicity or the potential for that, you have to detox from it. Because those heavy metals occupy the parking spots where our good metals should be, like zinc and iron and copper and magnesium and calcium. We need those minerals, but the body's not particular. If you're short on good minerals, it will take the toxins and let them park there. Then you got to kick those other ones out. It's an effort, right? And they have to be cleared through the liver and the kidneys and the lymph, which happens to be what we're going to be detoxing in the 21-day cleanse. Okay, what else?
I think I inhale toxins
From a environment.
in the environment.
Oh, you're
in the
around
air-
animals a lot.
In
I was
the
gonna
air.
say, we live in an agricultural community, so pesticides.
Chemicals. Yeah,
Cleaning
chemicals.
products.
Chemicals are huge. And you don't even have to spray your own property, but if your neighbor's spraying their property, guess what? It's in the air, it's airborne, just like you said. So airborne stuff is huge. And if you have animals in their waste, and in this, when you're cleaning out the kitty litter box or whatever, there's toxins in there. There's Toxoplasma gondii in kitty litter boxes. So if you've got cats and you have a litter box, you should be wearing a mask so you don't get any parasites. Okay? What else? Oh, did you know? Let's talk about hormone disruptors. Hormone disruptors are huge, right? I don't take my receipts anymore because the chemicals on the cash register receipts are all hormone disruptors. So I'm just like, they always ask, do you want your receipt? Nope, I don't need it. Or I say, put it in the back. I didn't want to touch them. Scented candles this time of the year. Huge hormone disruptors.
All those diffusers things.
The diffuser things that they plug in the wall. Febreze.
All the colognes and perfumes drive me nuts.
Definitely. definitely hormone disruptors. Bed Bath and whatever it's called, hormone disruptors. So the fragrances that you can use are
Cinnamon.
essential oils.
Oh.
Okay, essential oils. So instead of dryer sheets, you get the little wool balls, you put the essential oils, rub them on the wool balls, and you throw them in the dryer. And that scents your clothes if you gotta have a scent, right? Besides clean. But they have like orange and lavender
Orange
and
lavender
stuff.
together are really good.
Yep, yep. So you gotta use your essential oils when you can. As far as perfume goes, I mean, I tell people you can put it on your clothes, but don't put it on your body, right? And even, you know, kind of misting it and walking through, hold your breath, right? You can
What
try to
about
do that
water,
for
though?
special occasions.
Toxins in the water.
Very high, they cannot remove those. So people who flush their meds down the toilet and they go through our water purification systems, they're still in there. You can't take that stuff out. There's more Prozac in our water supply than most people's medicine chest because they can't remove it.
Maybe I should start drinking it then.
And we're peeing, and we're, right? And when we pee out extra meds, it goes into our sewage treatment plants. I mean, there's, if you live in the city and they've got sewage treatment plants,
But all of us on standard process, maybe it like equals out.
right?
you know?
Right? So, one of the main objectives of doing a 21-day purification or a 21-day detox is to clean the organ systems that are responsible for getting rid of these things. And there's three main ones. What are the organ systems that take out this trash? Liver,
Probably kidneys.
kidneys,
Lymph.
lymph, and one more, lungs. Okay, so we breathe out a lot of trash, especially in the chemical form. So one of the great things about the new SP detox protocol is when we have excess trash in the body, and we all have been in that place in our life where we have excess trash that the body can't get rid of. The body's really smart. It will take that trash, those chemicals and all that stuff, and it will turn it into a fat-soluble toxin, which it will then store in our fat because it's out of circulation now, right? It's like going, what am I going to do with this stuff? I can't get rid of it. I don't have a way to get rid of it. The liver's a dirty filter. So if you think about the liver and the kidneys as filters, like an air filter or a fuel filter, its job is to remove the trash. But what happens when the filter gets dirty? Where's the trash go? Stays in the fuel, or stays in the blood, or stays, you know, wherever it's at. And so we need to clean these filters every once in a while. I usually recommend once or twice a year, depending on your job. And by cleaning the filters, then the trash has somewhere to go. It continues to leave the body like it's supposed to. But if the filters have gotten dirty, then the trash goes into the fat. So when it goes into the fat, it's kind of safe. And the body kind of safeguards that fat. It's like going, I'm going to hang on to this now because I can't let it go because it's going to go to the brain or it's going to go to somewhere and cause damage. It's one of the reasons why we have trouble losing weight when we have dirty filters. So oftentimes a 21-day cleanse or 21-day detox gives the body permission to get rid of some extra weight that's been hanging on to. Because then filters are clean and the body's like going, well, great, I can get rid of trash now. If you clean that filter, it can work again. So that's one of the great things about doing this as well. Plus we're going to have the cleanest nutritional diet that we've had for a while because we're going to be getting rid of a bunch of stuff that we would normally eat perhaps. So then once the body has a clean filter, the nutrients that are in the SP detox balance actually convert the fat-soluble trash back into water-soluble trash so that we can now excrete it. So it's a way of cleaning the filters, converting the trash into something we can excrete, and then getting rid of it. Okay. Here's another thing I forgot that you're going to avoid. Dairy.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so things you're going to avoid.
Yogurt. Gonna miss
Now
yogurt.
you can find some. I forgot one other thing too. Nuts, but we can have seeds. So if you're a nut butter person, you can use sunflower seed butter instead of almond butter for this 21 days. It's actually pretty tasty. Just make sure there's no sugar in it. Caffeine, 2 F's. Alcohol,
Oh.
another form of sugar. Now, since most of us are gonna start this Thanksgiving 2-3 weeks hence towards Christmas, if you're gonna go to a party and you know you wanna have a glass of wine or something, just don't eat any fruit that day, right? Kick your fruit out so that your pancreas isn't overworked. But don't do it every day. But I mean, if there's like a office party that you know you're gonna go to, just kind of make allowances for that. Sugar, we talked about. And packaged foods.
And grains.
Thanks.
And what about eggs, yes or no?
Eggs are yes. Packaged food. So things we can eat. Protein. We talked about working on the types of proteins we're gonna eat. Veggies. Fruit. We talked about low sugar fruit. Seeds. Good fats. Seasonings. Fresh if possible, because a lot of our bottled seasonings will have MSG in them. So just look at your labels, make sure there's no sugar or MSG in your seasonings. And if they're older than 2 years, throw them away. They're not any good anymore. They've lost their flavor and all of that. So when the fire happened, I had to go through my entire thing and just toss them because they were opened, right? I'm like, well, I'm not gonna use this, it was opened. So slowly been redoing mine. And then legumes. Quinoa. And
Brown
wild rice,
Wild rice, not brown rice.
not brown, wild. I mean, if you wanted to, you could mix some wild and brown. But if you haven't tried wild rice, it's actually pretty tasty. It's quite chewy, so it's not gonna be soft, but
And
it's
it all
actually
has to
really
be
good.
organic, right?
Preferably, because they heavily spray rice.
I mean, all that,
That would be ideal.
okay.
That would be ideal. And the seeds, they could be, so when I'm talking seeds, I'm talking pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds. Yeah, those are all available. Flax seeds. So those are things that you can do for sure. Okay, so we talked about, brain changes. So when people have high blood sugar, so these are some articles that I downloaded talking about midlife insulin resistance and late life brain amyloid accumulation. So what that basically means in English is if you have insulin resistance, meaning your pancreas is overworked and your blood sugar is rising, your likelihood of having a dementia of sorts is much higher. Because for every 10 years that you have high blood sugar, your brain shrinks about 4%. We already don't use enough of our brain as it is. So 4% can be significant for some of us. So we just need to keep our blood sugar low, and it needs to maintain a low level. So avoiding those sugar things and things that turn into sugar is really important for our brain health. Higher normal fasting glucose. So we're talking about blood sugar, right? If your fasting glucose is above 100, it's associated with hippocampal atrophy. So that's the hippocampus. So before you guys came in, we were talking about the hippocampus is where we store memory, right? So if you have higher than normal fasting glucose, your hippocampus, where we store memory, is shrinking. Atrophy means it's shrinking. So that means we get more dementia, okay? They're building dementia centers like on every corner down in Sacramento where I live. They're just like everywhere. There's 3 on my street where my office is. They're planning on us becoming demented. It's up to us. We get to choose what we put in our mouth. We need to stop eating so much refined sugar and things that turn into sugar because we're doing it to ourselves. The brain is also 60% fat, so I really stress having enough good fat when you're on this cleanse. It's not a fat-free diet. It's not a fat-free cleanse. So good fats at each meal. We're going to talk about what the meals are going to look like in just a second. hippocampal atrophy, we talked about that. Brain changes, we talked about the shrinking of the brain, and amyloid. Okay, good. So now, let's talk about what a typical day is gonna look like in the life of your cleanse. Since all of you are already patients of mine, if you're already been detoxing, you're gonna jump into this category, where we do 2 shakes a day. You can intermittent fast. Does everybody know what intermittent fasting is?
No.
Okay, let me tell you what that is. Anywhere from 2 to 7 days a week. So intermittent fasting means you're going to skip breakfast. You're gonna have anywhere from a 14 to 16 hour fast. Could be just 2 days a week, but it could be 7 if you're up for it. Okay? It's not gonna hurt you to skip breakfast. So that means you're gonna eat all your food within an 8-hour period. 8 to 10 hours.
Well, I would say 14 to 16 hours.
Between.
Oh.
This is the
the
fasting
fast.
time.
Oh.
This is the fasting time. So that means you're gonna start eating at noon, and you're gonna stop eating at 8 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Oh, got it.
So 12 noon to 8 p.m. is an 8-hour period. So during that period of time, you could have a shake, maybe a salad at lunch,
Mhm.
a snack in the afternoon, dinner, and a shake. So that's kind of a more advanced protocol, right? So, or you have 2 choices there. If you're gonna not intermittent fast, and you don't have to by any means. So Julie, I don't want you losing, how much, you don't wanna lose any weight. No,
Well, of
so
course I do, but.
you might do 2 meals, 2 shakes. Okay? 2 meals, 2 shakes, a snack if you need it, right? You don't have to do any fasting if you don't want to, but I encourage you to at least try it a couple days a week, because it upregulates the immune system. When you're not eating any food and the body doesn't have to worry about digesting, it's like, oh, what else can I do? I don't have digestion work to do. I can, like, it's like when you finish something on your a project at work, right? It's like, oh, that project is done. What else can I do? The body's the same way. It's like, what can I go mend? What can I upregulate? What infection can I fight? What can I do to repair anything that needs to be repaired? So if it's spending its energy on digesting every couple of hours, it's not gonna have much time to do anything else. So this is a great opportunity to try intermittent fasting if you've not tried it before. And it might just be a 12-hour fast. You don't eat between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., especially if you're a late night snacker. 12 hours might be enough for you, right? So it can be 12-hour fast. I usually recommend a 16-hour fast on nights where you've had a big dinner. So if you had a big dinner or you ate a little later, that's a great opportunity for you to wait until lunchtime to eat your next meal. So your body has an opportunity to burn off and digest the calories that you ate the night before. Okay, so intermittent fast. Got that. Okay, so these are some different scenarios we can do on this one. Lunch, shake, dinner, shake. The shakes are important because that's our detox, right? But you could have like a salad and a shake at the same time, and there's 17 grams of protein in a shake, so you don't need a lot of extra protein in your salad, right? Because it's already there. But make sure you've got a variety of vegetables in that salad, not just lettuce. Okay, does that make sense? You might put if you have a salad, make sure you put on a half a avocado for a good fat. If you don't like avocado, use olive oil. So make sure you get a good fat in that. I'm also going to ask you to add 1 tablespoon of a good fat to each shake. That can be avocado oil, it can be olive oil, it can be coconut oil if you're blending. I don't care what kind of oil it is, well I do, but a good fat. Okay?
You put like sunflower seed butter in it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you
Instead of
absolutely
almond
can. So another option would be shake, snack. So if this was lunch, snack would be kind of mid-afternoon. Dinner, shake. So this would be an intermittent fasting day. Okay, so this could start at lunch. So, and then the other option would be lunch, have a shake, have a snack, have another shake, and then have a salad. So this would be dinner, snack. Lunch would be your main meal in this situation. So those of you who can do your main meal at lunchtime, this is an opportunity for you to front load your meal, your day's calories, and then have a lighter dinner.
And what does snack consist of? When you say snack?
So the snack is gonna consist of something like celery and your sunflower butter, maybe 2 hard-boiled eggs. So I'm looking for a fat and a protein for a snack. Okay, you can add a veggie in there if you want. It might be,
Hummus?
hummus is a
Oh,
bean.
bean,
Okay, but it might be a little bit of tuna salad that you've made up, and you use, a cucumber slice or a zucchini slice for your dipper. It might be a piece of leftover protein, right? It could also be like some chicken that you mix with avocado. I call it, and cilantro. It's like a green
Chicken salad.
chicken salad, basically. So you just kind of mix everything together. Your avocado, your chicken, and this like shredded, and cilantro, and it's just like really, really good. And you kind of use that with on any vegetable. You can also do bell pepper, the red bell peppers, and slice them lengthwise, and kind of use that as your dipper. Look for ways to add more vegetables to your life. We need more vegetables in our life for the most part. How many of you eat enough vegetables now, would you say? And lettuce doesn't count. Yeah, none of us really do. We want to try to get 3 cups a day of vegetables. Okay, that's our goal. If we had 3 cups of vegetables, guess what? We wouldn't eat as many grains. And so that's a way for us to get the minerals that we want too. We get our minerals from vegetables. Okay. So, why don't you bring out the kit and we can look at that. So important things to remember. Water to keep detox happening. So if you're creating all this trash and the body needs to eliminate it, it needs to exit through the appropriate pathways. If you do not exit through the appropriate pathways, guess what happens? You get a rash. Because the skin will become your only native organ. Okay? So I always know who's not detoxing properly. And because the SP detox balance is quite strong, I'm also going to be muscle testing each of you to make sure that your liver, your kidneys, and your lymph are able to handle the amount of detox that we're going to do. So those of you who've not been on board with me, you might need a little extra support for kidneys or liver. So we're just going to do a quick muscle test when we're done and make sure everything's all good to go. So we use 2 scoops per shake. It's 17 grams of protein. So for the minimum amount of protein I want you to have per day is 60 grams. Men, I'm looking for 80 grams. Minimum.
Oh, minimum?
Minimum.
Oh.
If you go over, I'm okay with that. But 60 is minimum. That means if you have 2 shakes, that's 34 grams. So I'm looking for 30 more grams of protein through the day.
Okay.
1 egg equals 7 grams.
That's it.
1 ounce of meat equals 7 grams. So that leaves you with about 5 ounces of meat or protein that you're going to need to add to your 2 shakes, at the very least. Okay? A serving is usually between, 4 ounces, so you're probably going to have that and a snack with some protein in it.
So should the protein be dispensed or spread out through
Yes,
the meal?
it should,
Not
because if you eat too much
concentrated.
If you eat too much protein all at once, what's the body going to do with it? Turn it into fat
Turn to fat.
and store.
Or turn
or
it-
sugar.
Or sugar,
or sugar.
yeah.
Really?
Yes. So we do want it spread out. which is why I kind of laid it out like this, right? Shake, snack, dinner, shake.
Yeah.
And you can pick whatever system works best for you. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I just want the 2 shakes in there a day, and I want enough protein and vegetables to take the trash out. And I don't want you to be hungry. This is not this is not a hungry cleanse at all. This is you're well fed, but with the proper food. So basically you get 2 of these cans with your program, and that will be 42 shakes, okay, which is 21 days. Now, some of you might want to start with 1 shake a day and kind of ease into detoxing. But all but you have been with me in detoxing sufficiently. You should have no problem just jumping right into the 2 shakes a day, okay? And I'll muscle test you to check. So you're gonna get a shaker bottle. That way, if you want to take your protein with you to work, you just put your 2 scoops in here, add your water or your milk. So what I do is I put a little bit of water with my powders, I shake it up, and then I add hot water. So then it's like a hot chai. If you want to add cocoa powder to it, you can totally do that to make it chocolate also.
There's a lot of different recipes in the book.
Yeah.
You guys do not have to drink the same shake.
Every day. You can throw it in a blender and put in berries. You can throw in an orange. You can throw in a little bit of mint leaves. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can change them up. We did some recipes.
We did. There's a video on your Facebook page
Yeah.
and on
So
your
put it
website.
with a little like homemade vegetable soup or something and make it, still drink it, but make it just, so it's more like
You
a
can
soup.
do it any way you want.
As long as you take-
So
As
we're
long
not
as you
getting-
get it down, I don't care how you get it in.
You're not gonna give us the other protein shake with it? That chocolate stuff?
So some of my patients
Mhm.
will do this. You can get one of these,
Mm-hmm,
and you can get one of the SP chocolates,
okay.
and you can mix them together. It would be 1 scoop of this
Mhm.
and 2 scoops of the SP Complete.
Okay.
You can totally do that.
What does that one taste like? Just the
Chai.
way it is.
Chai. Yeah, it's a nice flavor. It's a nice flavor.
Hmm.
It's not bad at all. You've been using it.
It's pretty lightweight.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
I mean, it's not strong chai.
I think I had it.
It's not strong chai. It's just a mild.
Mm-hmm.
It's very mild. Is there anything else I'm missing, Rochelle?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you.